Welcome, one and all, to the finale of Let's Play Super Metroid for the SNES. And, the expansions I ended up forgetting were actually ones that were part of some areas I had already been to on camera. But, when I had to go back and redo the game, I had to go back and redo said areas because I forgot to do those, locations. But, basically, it's nothing worth showing. They were simply the vessels that are within the area of Norfair, where you also kind of get a reserve tank and you can kind of cheese your way up there using wall jumps. You probably know what I'm talking about by now. But basically, I realized that because of that, it was the main reason why I had 3 reserve tanks in the Ridley fight as opposed to 4 like I should have had. But, whatever. I went ahead and grabbed the other missile tank too that I showed at the end of the last video, so without further ado, let's go ahead and head on into Turan. The very same kind of area that we went through in the original Metroid. So, yeah, once you beat all the Guardians, you simply come up here and the way forward shall be opened. I didn't really feel like showing this off in one of my previous parts in the playthrough because I figured something like this would be common knowledge by now, but now you know. This LP is done to death, after all, so I didn't feel like burning any more time explaining things that were pretty much already common by this point than I really needed to, so. This thing is much slower than it needs to be. I guess it's kind of another thing that I appreciate about later Metroid games too. Like, transitions in general are just so much faster. And while that definitely comes off as more of a slice of life thing, believe me, speeding up simple things like that and door transitions can mean a whole lot for the pacing of the playthrough. Like, look at what the fast forward button did for the 3DS Fire Emblems. They helped speed up games like Fire Emblem Gaiden immensely and made it a much better game as a result. But, yeah. Turan is, certainly feeling a lot less, threatening than it was in the original Metroid, but I'm pretty sure that's just because Samus is a bit more versatile than she was in Metroid 1. That, and we have like over twice the amount of energy tanks we had in that game. So yeah, nothing here is considered much of an issue. Hold on. Alright, so I don't even remotely remember what I was talking about, but yeah, let's go ahead and get down to nitty gritty. Toran, as it was in Metroid 1, it's pretty linear. You have Rinkas attacking from every angle. Everybody's favorite goddamn SpaghettiOs. So, yeah, those are kind of fun to contend with, but Screw Attack more or less tears them up, and plus, like, in general, Turan feels a lot more open-ended than it was in Metroid 1. So you're not having to go through so many like tight corridors just to get to like point A to point B. And this just kind of makes Turan not stand out as much. I don't know. It certainly caught me by surprise when I first played Super Metroid. I can tell you that much because I did go into Metroid completely blind. I was not aware of Turan coming back, let alone the final boss. So, uh, thankfully, the internet was not as big then as it was now, so I didn't have that big bit of like exposition dumped onto my face before jumping straight into this game. Yeah, I don't know. Everything about Turan in general just feels so much smaller. But it's there for the storytelling and not much else. So, there were, as most people know, 2 save points. The one at the beginning of the area, which I didn't bother using because I'm about to finish up the playthrough anyway. and then there's one towards the end. And if you did not collect all of the expansions coming up to this point, I would not recommend taking that save point, as basically it locks you into a point of no return. Because after this specific story point, the game decides that it wants to lock you off from the rest of Turan, let alone the rest of the game world, and you can't go back and get expansions. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. And yeah, this place is looking pretty dead, and not in the good way either. So many corpses just kind of lying about, and really nigh indestructible enemies just kind of roaming about that you can't really do a whole lot about. And that's a giant Metroid! The very same Metroid that they used to clone all those other Metroids we saw. So yeah, that is indeed the baby Metroid we've been searching for this entire time. I don't know why it's so huge. Apparently, it's stated that, like, they exposed this thing to gamma rays, and as a result, it completely shifted its life cycle to be radically different than what a natural growth would be like. Hence, like, the Alpha, Gamma, Zeta, and Omega Metroids in Metroid 2. But yeah, as soon as it heard that alarm, because apparently it's not just the player thing, the whole health alarm thing is something other characters can hear. The baby Metroid took off and realized that, yeah, this is the very same thing that saved her life at the end of Metroid 2. And I don't know. I know it's somewhat subtle and it doesn't have a whole lot of context behind it if you hadn't already have played Metroid 2 beforehand, but I don't know. I love little nods like that. I love little pieces like that that kind of, like, sort of stick the story together. Oh my god, hold on. Sweet Jesus, so many interruptions. Okay, so yeah, apparently it's actually completely possible to skip that whole sequence with the baby Metroid latching on to Samus altogether. And what that involves is shooting away the webbing and jumping in a way to where the baby Metroid continues to circle around you, and you basically transition into the next room, and it's like nothing ever happened. Granted, the baby Metroid still saves your ass in the end anyway, but like, yeah, it's an interesting sequence break nonetheless, and it speeds up the game time significantly. But yeah, this is looking quite familiar. A pretty familiar setup, if I do say so myself. These little Zebites, SpaghettiOs attacking me from every corner, turrets. I'm getting the feeling we're going to be seeing a familiar foe, and that would happen to be the Mother Brain. And keep in mind, I did play this after Zero Mission and Metroid 1, so yeah, I definitely was caught off guard. It's, again, a nice, but, like, interesting twist to, like, what your old adventure kind of leads up to. And it's funny because it kind of goes to show that despite how relentless the space pirates are, they're literally getting themselves into the same bullshit that happened in Metroid 1. But no, it looks like Mother Brain got quite a few upgrades. I don't know if this is the same Mother Brain or not, but yeah. Now it's sporting the body of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, apparently. As I had mentioned before, this fight is not difficult at all. You basically just want to jump over the projectiles and diagonally aim at her head and more or less spam missiles. It's a scene that happens later that kind of cements the fact as to why this is, like, one of my top 3 favorite final bosses in Metroid in general. The other two being Metroid Prime 2 and Samus Returns, but I'm not going to quite spoil what Samus Returns' final boss is at the moment. Not until that game kind of loses its flavor. of the week. Oh god, I'm getting so much lag out of this. Oh, and we're already at that point. I didn't expect to blaze through it so fast. But yeah, it's because of this fight that it's literally impossible to do 0% because you actually have to have at least 3 energy takes on hand to be able to withstand that giant mega laser of death. Which, I can't say what I feel about that design choice, personally, but the game's kind enough to throw a few extra energy tanks your way anyway. There's no reason to miss as many as you did. I had 7 going into this fight the very first time. This very same 7 I had fighting Ridley. Not any real reason to like miss out on it. On those energy takes, honestly. But yeah, the moment you get to this point, you don't want to let her beat you up too hard because it is definitely possible to let the Mega Laser of Death kill you off. So make sure you have this amount of energy left over, and this happens. The baby Metroid once again plays the big damn hero in this moment, and it once again shows that it is clearly on our side for more reasons than one. Now, get ready to witness visual storytelling at its best, gentlemen. So it's filling up our energy, it's sacrificing everything it has to keep Samus alive in this battle, but as you can tell, Mother Brain is not going down that easily. But yet, in the midst of all of this, the baby Metroid is still giving us its energy, despite how much of a beating this thing is taking. So that then it tries to go in for one more fell swoop, and ultimately gets sacrificed for the greater good of mankind. Samus is pissed, and with all of her fury, she blasts this thing to the heavens with this amazing hyper beam. And man, I don't care how cliche the big damn hero is at its point. This right here, gentlemen, this right here solidified why I love this final boss. The fact that she feels so helpless, and I know this is something that's especially done in JRPGs to death, but the way Metroid does it, in the sense that, like, the thing that's giving you the energy you need to survive this fight, and it's still, you know, trying to help you out, despite how, you know, it could potentially go and just kick Mother Brain's ass, but it wants to keep you alive. Because you're the damn thing's mama, essentially. Sacrifices its life. Samus is fucking pissed, and she mutilates the thing. Like, it's not even, like, strategy at that point. You murder that thing. And that right there is that is a satisfying ending right there. That right there is a satisfying conclusion to one of the greatest final bosses in video gaming history. And it just goes to show that, again, you don't need a boss with terribly complex strategies as long as it's not fucking bullshit or boring. But, like, if you can convey your message across to the audience as well as the Mother Brain did, then you have yourself a winner. But yeah, Super Metroid more or less established at this point that exploding planets are going to be a reoccurring trend. I mean, granted, it kind of started in Metroid 1, but I don't think it really got its head start. Oh god, Okay, fine. Fine, game, have it your way. It's actually possible to shine spark through these platforms despite them being solid objects, and this is like the only time in Metroid history where I can think of that actually being possible. But yeah, that's a good shortcut if you're aware of its existence. And of course, before anybody asks, Yes, I'm going to be saving the animals. That's kind of a speed running trend now that I think about it. Like, people are honest, are always like in every like single speed run of this game. Are you gonna save the animals? Don't let the poor animals die. And yeah, the things I'm referring to specifically are the etiquettes and decorus, the same things that taught us the shine spark and the wall jumping techniques. And we're gonna be paid them the favor. Granted, I knew of these techniques beforehand, but if not for these guys, I don't think we'd become the speedrunning experts we are at this game today. So yeah, we have these guys that thank for a multitude of things. Maybe you could even say the decors and etiquettes were what sparked the speedrunning interest to begin with. I mean, wall jumping is like kind of a big de facto thing in Super Metroid after all. It's like, Fusion doesn't have the wall jump I want! Worst game ever! Ah! And I know, my runtime was probably god-awful, especially since I had to go back for those expansions, but nonetheless, we have finished the game fast enough to get the best ending, and that's all that matters. Planet Zebes, a home in which Samus was raised, established in the manga and parts of Zero Mission, is now eradicated. The space pirates are dead, the Metroids are no more, and quite frankly, this right here, gentlemen, is a fantastic conclusion to a great, what was originally a trilogy of fantastic action-adventure games. And yeah, if you saw that little dot moving from the planet onto the right, those were the etiquettes and decoras. That's literally the only thing you get, but it's the satisfaction that's all worth it in the end. But yeah, Super Metroid. Ooh, still a great game all these years later. It's oh, I can most certainly see why this is not only the best Metroid game considered by many, but also just one of the best video games made, period. Its strong narrative elements, its extremely flexible methods in which you can take multiple paths and solutions to everything. Samus's versatility and just the numerous tools she has at her disposal. Super Metroid is just a difficult game to top even in 2017, to the point where I feel like the developers are just scared to like go out of their way and try to exceed it, you know? So much so, like, Sakamoto himself had planned to remake Super Metroid, but had priorities over other games instead. And many fans will tell you that, like, Fusion, Super Metroid, and Zero Mission don't deserve remakes. Because these games are perfectly fine as is, and they still stand the test of time. People are still speedrunning this. People are still finding what makes this game great, stands the test of time, and why this right here, gentlemen, is one of Nintendo's greatest hits. Super Metroid is just fantastic. It is one of my favorite Super Nintendo games of all time. I'd say second favorite next to Terra Enigma. Because Terra Enigma's narrative is beyond spectacular, but like Super Metroid held that title for the longest time, and deservedly so. That being said, some of its hidden elements aren't as portrayed as well as they should. Watch one of my previous parts get more emphasis on what I'm talking about, but Super Metroid is definitely not the most accessible game. There are a good number of reasons why people can't immediately jump into this game, and I would most certainly recommend Zero Mission and maybe Fusion before coming to this game. I didn't even play this game until after, um, you know, Zero Mission, Fusion, Prime 1 and 2, and Metroid 1. So, in a way, like, yeah, I played this at a young age, but I didn't really have the nostalgia there, but I still love this game all the same. This game is in no way, shape, or form overrated, and it deserves the spot it has in gaming culture. And because of that, yeah, Metroid went on a long hiatus a very long hiatus, a very long one, in fact, in that it's actually much longer than the one we recently suffered through. Like, you thought 6 or 7 years was bad? Fans of this game went 8 years before having another Metroid game. 8 years! And the 2D Metroid game they got after that definitely didn't play it safe. I enjoy Fusion, but I don't 100% agree with all of the decisions involved with that one. But nevertheless, it did a good job at introducing a new generation of players to Metroid, such as myself. I mean, I did start with Fusion after all. And yeah, like it's Met- Metroid more or less skipped out on a whole generation here, much like they did with the Wii U. And quite honestly, it was simply because too many like developers that were wanting to continue the legacy were too scared to. I think I remember reading somewhere that they tried to hand a Metroid project off to somebody else, and they were too afraid to do it because they they thought it wouldn't be as good as Super Metroid. That's crazy, you know? Rarely do you ever hear an argument like that for anything. Like, Super Metroid held such an impressive reputation for so many years. And quite frankly, at least, with the hiatus until it ended on a good note. Not like Other M, because Other M is an abomination. But yeah, this game, it's so good. But yeah, the next Metroid game we're going to be tackling is either going to be Metroid Prime or Metroid Fusion. But quite frankly, as I had mentioned in one of the previous parts, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with going right into those games immediately or not. It really just depends on my mood because I already have a project or two lined up already, and I might end up either doing those or putting Prime or Fusion next to those projects. I had a few friends on my Discord server recommend to me what game I should play next, and I'm looking forward to playing it again because I haven't touched it in years. I'll let you guys figure out what that is because I'm not going to provide any clues. But let's just say it's going to be part of me celebrating the arrival of Mario Odyssey. Anywho, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this playthrough. I hope I provided an interesting enough spin on an overdone Let's Play at this point, and if not, uh, I really don't know what to say. Anywho, I hope you guys look forward to the next playthrough, let alone next Metroid Let's Play, because I still plan to tackle the entire series, and I will see you guys then.